Cool. Welcome to the Warrior Bod Pod. I am your host, Coach Kyle, and joined with me today are two badass ladies that train at the gym I work out of. We've got Jody McPeak and Denise Royer. Jody is the current Canadian national record holder in squat, bench press, and overall total, and competes in the 57 kg class, Masters 2. She's also the IPF World Bronze Medalist 2018 and 19, and mother of 4. Then we also have Denise, who is a current Alberta record holder for the bench and squat in her weight and age class. Her least favorite movement out of the big three is the deadlift. She competes at 57 kgs in the M1 class. Previously, she was into cycling and triathlons and rode for the Hammer Nutrition team and is a mother of 1. So ladies, welcome to the show. I appreciate you both being a guest.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I wanted you both on here because I just want to acknowledge how, when I said badass, I actually mean it. There has not been a point in time where I've been at the gym where I have not seen you two crushing it. Maybe there's variable times.
Or crushing it, yeah.
Yeah, or being crushed by it.
Yeah.
But, and a couple saves. I've been there for some.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to bring you onto the podcast to be able to talk about your experience with physical activity, being moms, and the challenges that you previously had that maybe you've learned in the process of trying to balance everything out. But overall, I wanted to bring on a different perspective of what health and fitness can be rather than just where it's just physical or it's just mental. I love how you two work together. You two are a team, and it's obvious, like it's evident. And I think it's like you can just tell from like even from the other side of the gym, like there's such a cool you drive each other further and further and further. And I just think that it's amazing. And I think both of you are just amazing people and amazing athletes. And I just want to possibly shift some perspectives. And I think that you two would be probably the best to go with, or possibly through your own experiences, to be able to share some things that people may think of as being true, but is actually a false belief. So the more that we can break things down like that, the faster we can actually make progress, because then we're not getting in our own way, right? So I just am really excited to chat with you two. I'm excited for folks to listen, and yeah, welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
Let's hear about your origin stories. Like what's your superhero stories? Where were you at, and how'd you get to this point?
Do you want me to start? I
Sure.
can start. I can speak for both of us that we've been in sport in some aspect of our lives forever, right? Jody ran Boston marathons. I was in triathlon. So we've both been, except we was a chubbier kid we figured out when we met, because we met through powerlifting 4 years ago. We were the chubbier kid in grade school. Mm-hmm. And were you into sports then? I was, but it was more limited for sure. So in our adult life or mom life, we were we've always been active, always doing things, and changing up sports every few years. It seemed like we were doing something different.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so now both of you are powerlifting, so that's squat, bench, and dead. And you are both in the M1, M2 division. Would you be able to explain what that means?
Sure. So Masters 1, the division is between 40 and 49. Yeah. And then Masters 2 is 49 to 50, or 50 to 59, 50 to 59.
Cool.
And then we have different weight classes as well. So Jody and I both compete at the 57 kilo class, meaning we have to weigh in at 125.5 pounds or less on meet day.
Okay, cool. So you're both crushing it at the gym, lifting pretty solid weights, and over the age of 40.
Yep.
Nice.
It's just interesting that when you were talking before, Kyle, and you said you were asking about our perspective, what I think is interesting is the consistency that you have to do, because the misconception, or Is that right?
Yeah.
That people have is that, oh, you're
just
really
show up.
talented, or you're strong, or when we were doing endurance stuff, you're fast or whatever. It's actually just doing the little stuff every single day consistently. And so there's no like, you know, I'm not skilled in, I mean, Denise has a huge bench press, but she works on that every single, it's not like all of a sudden she's like, I'm skilled at this, so I'm just doing this, or vice versa. So the point when you were just talking before is, I think in anything we've done as we've had kids and been in endurance sports or in powerlifting, it's just doing it consistently, not obsessively, but just consistently making it a habit and part of your life, that it's like
That's
brushing your
gains
teeth,
happen.
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a cliche, but it is, we're not skilled. We just are consistent.
Yeah. I think consistency definitely beats out most other things. I think when folks are willing to play the long game, where it's not about how quickly they get something, it's about how effectively they get there, then it creates a buffer for better adjustments. And I like to think of it like, if you're looking at a sprinter compared to a long distance runner, sure, a sprinter looks like freaking shredded and their workouts are awesome, but if a sprinter has a shoelace untied and they trip and fall, they're going to feel a lot of road rashes compared to a marathon runner. It's just that marathon running is not very pretty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So something I think is really cool, because I like I mentioned before, like both of you are always training together. I could probably count, not on one hand, but more often than not, you're together. So not just in training, because it would definitely have a big impact, but the people that you spend the most time with, your affiliations, the folks that you're hanging out with, because there's a saying where you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
100%.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely. You become who you hang out with, right?
Mhm.
So if you're hanging out with, I mean, Jody and I make, agreements the day before. This is when we're going to meet. This is what our plan is for the week. We put ourselves first all the time, because if we're not putting ourselves first, we can't be excellent later on for those that need us, like our families. So 100%.
Yeah. And like for me and Denise too, positivity is a huge thing, and attitude. And, Denise and I both are similar in that sense. Or if one of us is having a day that we're not, she will tell me, or she it's kind of like, I laugh because guys usually talk like this. There's no problem with guys just saying it like it is to their buddy. Women don't necessarily do that as much. They're more like, they're not going to be upfront about it, but she'll say, get your ass, like, get that done, or like, we're going to do this, or vice versa, and that's quite refreshing.
Well, being in the box, like we always talk about before we get to the gym, if we've got struggles at home or stresses, we get in the box, zone out, let's get in the box, let's leave everything else out, let's focus on training. And a lot of times you kind of, I mean, most times you feel better leaving the gym and are better capable of dealing with other external stresses.
Nice.
And we get off of each other, like we learn from, I mean, it's like you said, you're around what you want to be around. So like, if it were just talking in terms of powerlifting, and I mean, Denise has an amazing bench, like I said, so that I like to strive to be better at certain things. So even in that specific thing, it's nice to have someone who's better at something that you.
And Jody rocks at the deadlift. We all know that I don't. So,
but it's that, and then the bottom line is we have fun together. And so if you're going to do something, like we joked yesterday when we were training, we had another friend come with us, and we all had coffee while we were at the squat racks. And we said, I don't know how many women actually meet for coffee at squat racks, but you're doing it, but it's kind of part of the fun of it. So it's not just training, it's the camaraderie and the laughs.
Community. It's a great community, right?
We quickly learned we can't squat across from each other, because one day we did that. We
laughed the whole time. Yeah.
But that's just part of it. I mean, it's something you're going to do every day. You got to enjoy it, or 4 times a week anyways.
Mm-hmm. Denise, could you dive in, or I guess both of you, because you both have the same coach too, but would you be able to dive into the box analogy again? And if possible, would you be able to kind of similar tactic, but not in a gym setting? So if it's
Sure.
outside of the gym, if you have any insight on that one, and then explain what the boxes as well.
So we write out our training day every training session, and in our books we will write yourself little notes. We write, get in the box. And this is a philosophy that our coach has helped us with, where things from outside life, especially when you're lifting heavy, you need to be focused so that you don't hurt yourself, right? So technique and all of that kind of stuff. So when your mind is thinking different things, I mean, obviously, you're not being focused on what you're doing. So we just try to put everything else away, family stresses, whatever it happens to be, and we get in the box, and that's kind of our zone. And it's the same thing in everyday life, right? When you're focusing on things or trying to accomplish things, having direction, having goal setting is huge, and kind of getting to the finish line on things. It's the same theory, and that we carry in the gym that we carry to everyday life. Does that make sense?
I think it's also being realistic though. And I think maybe as masters or as women over 40, you tend to do that a little bit better, is that you're realistic in terms of your mobility and what you can handle and your stress levels. So you can get in the box, which is great, but that also means don't just go for necessarily what your plan is for that day. Because there's some days that your body, as my last coach, who was great too, used to say, if that faucet is overflowing, like the water keeps filling up and the sink is overflowing, where's the water going to go? Well, it's going to start seeping out. So you have to make some some smart decision that to keep that water or start letting it come down. So I think being in the box is also being mindful of
adult decisions.
Yes, what changes you might need to make, and not going and pushing that and getting stuck under the bar. Like, I shouldn't have been that time you helped Kyle, but not being mindful when you're warming up.
This is how I feel today.
Feeling?
Yeah. Yeah. And so we do a lot of perceived rate of exertion for a lot of our lifts too, where, we have to make, and we laugh, we're like, Jody will say, do you think I should go higher? And I'm like, well, let's make an adult decision today. What do you think? Yeah. What do you think? And so we're not ego lifters. We're not maxing out all the time unless we're, getting close to a competition, but we just try to make adult decisions.
Yeah. Which carries on to life.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Yeah.
Not just in the gym.
Yeah.
Totally. So something with the gym, and from the way it sounds, the box is a way to train the mind to handle life in a better manner. Would you say that's accurate? Either?
100%. And to have your mind focus, right? Because a lot of times, we all have a goal, but it's like there's squirrels everywhere, right? So you're trying to focus on one thing, and then it's like squirrel, I got to do this, I got to do that. So it's training the mind 100% to focus on the now. And that's life too, right? Being in the now. That is exactly how it correlates to us being in the gym. We have to be in the now, in the box. Yeah.
Because if you're not present while lifting some pretty freaking heavy weight, it's not going to go too well.
No.
Nice.
Well, but we've all been there where we have days where it goes sideways, right? And that's a lesson too.
And you totally learn from that. I can comment, a few weeks ago, I had done a triple, like three reps of squat, and it was a heavier weight. And the first two weren't as bad as I thought. And so I wasn't as mindful in the box for the third one, which I should have been. And I tweaked my back. And so it was again, a learning, like you can't take for granted, just doing certain things. And so obviously I had to change
rehab
and go to some physio and do some things for a while, but it was reinforcing how you need to be mindful whatever you're doing. And you probably know this, Kyle, too, or you see this. It tends to be people hurt themselves on their last rep of their last exercise, right? Like,
and often it's not when it's heavy.
Exactly.
We've all hurt ourselves in the warm-up stage because you're not focused, because you think this isn't heavy. I don't need to worry about form because the weight's not heavy. And that's
Yeah.
where or we get out of the car too fast or get out of bed too fast because masters, you know.
Yeah. So it's always being present when you're doing something like that. And so back to training the mind to do that.
And in life, not just training.
That's sweet. Do you think training helps build up the mental resiliency just to handle life better?
100%.
Like handle even daily stressors, big stressors, just overall?
Hands down. The days that I don't train, that I haven't done some type of movement, even if it's just mobility, are days that I don't want to say struggle, but days that are harder to make.
Don't eat as well. You don't
eat as well. You don't drink as much water, all of that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So ladies being over 40
or 50
what are, because I think that there's a lot of folks out there that just think of as they get older, then the things are just going to go away, and that it's an uncontrollable, that it's too late to change, that they're too busy. In my mind, I think that there's no better time to start than right now, because we're always going to get busier as we progress, or we're just not going to have enough energy, right? What are your opinions on folks that have these kind of narratives, these kind of stories where they're saying it's too late for me now, or I've never been this, so I'm not going to do that? Do you think there needs any input, actually? What are your thoughts?
Well, it all starts with choices, right? If we don't care for ourselves first, we don't have the ability to care for others as well as we possibly could. Mm-hmm. So that's where this all, I think, starts for us, right? It's all decision based.
Well, and it's also, when we were talking before, I was thinking it's the focus. Like we were talking about getting into the gym. It's not so much, competing at a meet. I mean, that is the end goal, but it's the focus and the process of getting there. That the resiliency develops and the consistency and doing things that you're practicing, those good decisions that you want to create habits in your life. And so I always like setting a goal of a meet, but it's more because I know that gets, the journey of getting in line to how you get there. And it's just piling up those smart choices, eating properly, getting to the gym consistently. And so that just fills it all in.
Yeah. But people love an excuse, right?
Yep.
Everyone loves an excuse to why they're not doing something. I'm too busy. Right?
Or I'll start Monday.
Monday, and it just never happens. So it's huge mental strength that it's taken. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, right? Various sports, but it's the decision process and not having the excuses.
Well, and I think too, like, I've had sometimes people talk to me and they're like, oh yeah, you go to the gym and you're always, you enjoy that. Well, no, there's days where I'm tired. I don't feel like going into the gym, but there's never a day that I am disappointed that I went to the gym. And you hear people saying that. There's never ever been a time that I'm like, oh, I wished I didn't do that workout. Or I wish I didn't do that exercise. So it's really not, I think it's just having such a habit that you do that. And so to your question about as people, age or when's the time, it's the part of just doing something so it creates a habit that's a healthy one. And you can't wait for whenever. You just start it now so you can start building that up.
Yeah. And on the flip side, I think society applauds the negative decisions. And we just talked about this.
Yes,
like society will applaud, oh, well, I had a glass of wine or a bottle after work every single day this week. Well, people showcase that on social media and it's applauded. But we always get people, it's the opposite for us. Well, it's like, you're not going to the gym again, like, or you're going to eat that, like, but then we never say anything to someone who's eating the Big Mac, right? So there's a shift in the world that I think needs to happen, where we stop applauding all of this, the bad decisions, right? and start
Totally.
supporting those that want to make the good ones.
Totally. I think something that's kind of crazy too, and obviously media is an influence for like so many things, but I think when there was that huge bout in the 90s and early 2000 or mid 2000s, where if you looked at every rom-com, there was any time that there was ever a breakup component, there was always that friend that was ready with the ice cream or the drinks.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And we think that's okay. And don't get me wrong, it is okay to an extent. There's a balance to it, but we start to sometimes look at, especially for females, right? We just start to applaud things that I think are just not positive.
I think it's because it's not the norm. So, you know, most people on Friday, you know, like we're gonna have some wine, nothing wrong with that. We are not doing that every Friday just because, you know, we don't want to drink alcohol for training. But is that wrong? No, it's the choice that we make for what we're doing. But I would say there's not a lot of people that are going to say, oh, great. Yeah. Stay in, go to bed early. Yeah. But, you know, so that's the flip side of it. So I think it's changing that shift of thinking.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think I think a lot of folks are looking in the acute rather than in the worldview. So they're thinking of how to feel in this moment rather than how those things build up to like the big goal. Because I like to think of it like if you're looking in the mirror, we're an accumulation of our decisions.
100%.
Whether circumstances are working in our favor or not, we're still an accumulation of those decisions over time. And I was chatting with a client, and we were chatting about just weight gain and just how he feels the desire to have a valid like metric where he's like, I know I'm making progress because of this, right? So we had to reframe it because I'm someone where it comes down to the small little choices that accumulate over time. Like it's super simple. It's like, are you making decisions towards who you want to be or not? And everybody knows how to get to where they want to go. It's just making those decisions accumulate, right? And so I shot him a message and I was like, you know what, man, like reflecting on our conversation, when you were gaining the excess weight, did you have any metrics that you were tracking to make sure that you were getting there? Because he was still doing the things unconsciously to be able to get the result. And so I said, we already have the behavior in place to get us where we want to go. We just need to change the focus of what the tasks are. And I think that that's a really cool thing where people are just focusing too much on the big stuff when they need to focus on the little things. It's like, I think that is just like the biggest, lowest hanging fruit is awesome. They're always just so much sweeter, you know?
That's huge. It's also about balance because sometimes you see people that go all in for 3 weeks, all in, and then stop, and that's it.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It has to be something that you can sustain for the rest of your life. And we talk about this. We're fit for life. This isn't just, you know, today or tomorrow or next year. This is forever. And so what can we do that will be able to, you know, sustain forever as we age, especially?
And enjoying. Like I know when my kids were younger, I had 4 kids under 4. I thought, I want to be able to run with them or be able to be fit enough as a family when they're adults that I can keep up with them. But after a certain point, you know, running became something I didn't want to do. I wanted to focus more into weights. So what I'm trying to say is I think you need to be look at fitness as something in your life, but change accordingly, not stop because you're getting tired of running or tired of training with weights. Pick something else that you want to do. Don't just stop cold turkey because you're like, I've had enough of this.
So instead of just stopping entirely, just finding something else to substitute and perpetuate the health more.
Yeah, and be excited about. Like I know when I switched to powerlifting, it was all new and it was new goals, new challenges, and it was refreshing that way.
It's an evolution. It's a journey.
Yeah,
this is a journey for us and for anyone, right?
Yeah.
Got it. What are some common beliefs that you've heard from friends of yours that don't go to the gym, but you still hang around with, that kind of want to? Because I'm sure, I feel like there's always like someone that we have that's close to us that is just needs to make the right decision. So for that person, if you can envision that person, like, what would you say to that person if you're just being blunt, and if they were having those beliefs, or what would be those beliefs be actually that would prevent them from focusing on health?
I hear a lot, you just have more time than I.
Mm.
You have more time than I. Your schedule, you can go to the gym. I don't have time to do that. I make the time, right? So I schedule that time. And realistically, I mean, I work, I own my own company, and we train, 7:30 in the morning before our phones start ringing at 9. I make the time. I think that's a big one, right?
How much more productive are you working when you get your workout in the morning?
100%. Like, I've been training in the morning since I was 18 years old. So the days that I don't, I'm not as productive. I'm kind of lazy, and I get tired by 2:00. Like, even
it sets the tone.
It sets the tone for the day. 100%. Yeah. And it honestly, it's who we are in a lot of ways, right? Like it shapes who we are and how we.
Well, we're creatures of habit. Like, routine is good, in my opinion, for us. So you do that routine, and you don't have to think about it. If it becomes a routine, it's just what you do.
There's no decision anymore.
Yeah.
Like, there's no deciding if we're going to the gym. We know
It's
Monday,
unconscious.
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but like, we're just there. Like, it's just part of who we are now.
That's pretty cool. What would you say to the person that's saying, well, I guess you already said make time, but what would be the first do you have any tactical points on that one? Anything else that you want to add?
I think
because make the time is an easy one to say, and I say it all the time, but basically I'm just curious.
I think there's the one we talked about this earlier, just people assume, well, you're strong,
gifted,
or you're like
you're just a gifted athlete and it's easy for you,
or that's your mindset, or you're used to that, or that's what you've been always doing, so it's easier for you to do it now. Well, yes and no, because we've been always doing it because we've made that a habit, but that doesn't mean, as you were talking about before, you can't start doing that when you're 40 or 50. What's the obstacle? Just putting one foot in front of the other and getting there one day, doing it the next day.
Yeah. And I think for people looking in or looking at us too, they only see like the highlight reel, right? Mm-hmm. They only see when Jody's winning, a world championship. They only see like a great squat that's 1 minute. We have 1 minute to put years of training together. They only see that. They don't see the times where Jody and I are crying and, don't want to do this anymore, or we've had a bad, training session, or someone's hurt themselves.
Or I'll say it, or peed ourselves on a deadlift.
Yeah. They don't.
Everyone does it. It's not just the old ladies with kids.
Yeah. But they don't see that. They just see the highlight. But it's grueling some days. Like, if it can be, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to glorify that this is just this easy process, because it's not. Making a 2.5 kilo increase on the bench press, I've been chasing for 2 years. 2 years. And like 1 kilo at a time, and how many reps. And it's like things, it just takes time, and it takes.
And you know what else? I think we talked about this before. One really important thing is, when we started powerlifting, it was not for aesthetics. Like, at first, when we first tell people we powerlift, they assume
we're in bikinis on stage,
and it's all aesthetics. And so the motivation to powerlift was to get stronger and fitter. It had nothing to do with aesthetics. So
that's just the byproduct.
Yeah,
that just happens.
So I think when people go into the gym, what's your motivation? Is it
lose
health?
Weight? Yeah.
Or is it just to look better?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So more of like a deeper rooted kind of goal.
Yeah,
exactly. Source of encouragement to go to the gym.
Yeah. Like, we've taken that like aesthetic component out years ago, where we just don't talk about it. Like, it's just
it's
not.
a fringe benefit of
Yeah.
health and fitness. Like it's great. Like, yeah, like it's great as you start peaking for meat, you feel fitter and you know you are, but that's not the
what drives
byproduct.
us. Yeah.
Mm.
And I think as women, we need to shift our focuses, because you'll never, ever be consistent if all you think about is weight loss, ever. In my opinion, you just won't. Going into the gym thinking I need to lose weight, I need to look better, needs to change to, I want to be able to sit on that chair when I'm 60 years old and be able to get up on my own, and build strength. And like, we need to teach our kids about what our bodies can do, not necessarily about how they can look. And so that narrative definitely needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. Oh, that's a little freaking mic drop there. So something that I just thought of it. I'm like, you know what, this would be just a fun question to ask. I'm sure there might be a bias in this one, given what we were just talking about so far. So let's go with a little
Like a
fact and
bomb's gonna be
fiction.
dropped here.
Yeah, let's go with a little fact and fiction. Oh, it's not gonna be crazy, but let's go with a little fact versus fiction. So the story is women shouldn't lift weights. Fact or fiction, and can you elaborate?
Well, it's
ridiculous.
it's so ridiculous. I mean, you know, I'm not an expert in the physiology of it, but it's just not possible for women to get big like men with the testosterone and all those things. Like, that's a whole other
that's a different
conversation.
podcast. Yeah.
But we both have done endurance events. When I used to run for hours, not having the muscle, and just it was night and day. Like, I don't run like that anymore. I don't do a lot of cardio like that anymore. I do some for mobility, but just, you fit and feel better in your clothes when you have muscle, but it's not muscle that's bulging out. I mean, I'm the lightest I've ever been in my life in terms of weight, like in terms of my adult life.
Yeah.
And I'm the strongest I've ever been because of weights. So I'm actually, if you think, I'm a smaller person, but my body composition
is different. Yeah.
So I think we need to look at, building weights changes your body composition. That doesn't mean it's big muscles.
Well, and you also need to be mindful that the more muscle mass you have, the faster your metabolism is. And in essence, if women are thinking of fat loss, like it's all part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And just for context, like when we post videos or our training videos and stuff, and then people see us in person, like we're both 125 pounds. We're not like, we're tiny.
We always get that. I don't know what it is, maybe, but it's funny because whenever people just have seen us in a video, like of a powerlifting thing or something, they'll see us and they're like, you're so tiny, you're little or whatever. And it's funny. I don't know what the perception is, but no, to answer your question, like lifting weights is not,
it's a fountain of youth.
I mean, as we've gotten bigger, heavier deadlifts, heavier squats, heavier bench press, if that theory was correct, you'd think that we would get bigger muscles and bigger muscles and bigger muscles, but that's not happening. We're just getting stronger, and the body composition changes. And then we can go down the whole meat-based thing that we've started doing, which is a different, which is a huge game changer too, in terms of just eating more meat, in terms of, for women, especially getting into menopause and things like that, eating the thermogenic effects of food like that. But that's another podcast.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, because that probably how does that feel like? Because in my mind, protein is the foundational macronutrient. I think protein in itself, because it's just, we're able to repair tissue. It helps with our hormones. It helps with satiety. It makes us satisfied. It tastes freaking amazing. You can have pineapple and chicken thighs on a skewer, barbecued, and no one's gonna complain.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. I think because for my clients, there's a big focus on protein. Protein is the foundational part. And then once we get the protein down, then we actually just venture into other parts to dial things in. But how have you noticed, well, obviously physically you've noticed differences, but hormonally, what have you noticed the difference between, I guess, less protein than you were eating before or eating now? And then what's it like now? How do you, what could you talk about on that one?
Well, I think we were both eating lots of protein before, but now it's the sources of protein that have changed. So that's the change for us. Jody and I, well, Jody's got a nutrition degree, so she's
certification, but I used to be a nurse too. So I have some idea of just how that works in your body. And it was interesting because we talk about how we used to eat more vegetables, and not that anything's wrong with vegetables, but women tend to think, I'm going to lose weight, so I'm going to, have the big salad with a bit of chicken. That's great. But we are literally now eating a big steak, and maybe some berries or some mushrooms or whatever
every day.
And you're full after that. And so I think it tricks the mind. Initially, you're like so full, but
then you're not
so
snacking.
effective.
Yeah, you're not snacking and eating all that other stuff.
But hormonally, I mean, since I started eating more like this, my skin has gotten better in terms of, I don't know if it's inflammation, but my skin has gotten better. My hormones are more even keeled. Like they're just more balanced. Do you find that?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I think the fear of protein is just ridiculous. It's like how there was the fear of fats for a long time, then there's the fear of carbohydrates, and then there's like just a bajillion different things going on. I think pretty consistently, no matter what, I think protein intake is something that not very many people can say is bad for you, like there's so many health benefits that people are not really aware of. And I think the cool thing about having conversations like this is that we get to bring that awareness out a little bit more. It's pretty cool. So something that I think is really cool that you both mentioned the other day was maintenance is progress, because we're trying to aim for the heavier stuff, right? And I think it was Denise said maintenance is progress, I think. And I was like, oh, I immediately put that into my notes. I'm like, I'm going to touch on this because I think it's a cool reframe, because I think that I like the saying that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And the smoother that we go, the faster we're going to get there, right? There's not going to be huge, we're not going to have huge like peaks and troughs, right? We have that like consistency. So can you touch on maintenance as progress? Because that's just how I kind of like think of maintenance as progress. But can you touch on that a little bit? Because I thought that was such a cool thing that you said.
Sure. And it came actually from one of my original coaches. So as we age, especially as women, the gains are harder. They're harder to achieve. Your recovery might be slower. Like, I mean, we're aging, right? We're getting older.
Yeah.
So she always said, like, often when you're in the gym and things kind of plateau for us women that are aging, like it's that maintenance that you stay at a certain level of fitness is progress. Because normally as people age, everything is reduced, right? Fitness is reduced, all of that is reduced. But if you can maintain your current level of fitness, that's progress. And it's just kind of always stayed with me that, yeah, someday, we may not get to a bigger bench press, or we may not, make the numbers that we hoped we want to attain. But the fact that we're still here and we're still lifting the same numbers that we did 5 years ago is pretty cool. And that's a win.
Yeah. Or even the progress. I mean, this is a little bit more specific, but if you're at the same weight that you're pressing or you're pulling, but you're making it zippier or faster, that's actually
progress.
That's progress in itself. It may not be, like a huge or a huge PR, but the fact that you're doing something you did 2 years ago and you were grinding it out, but now you're doing the same weight and it's like smooth like butter. So you have to look for those smaller little wins. too sometimes.
Yeah, and you need to celebrate those, right? Like sometimes we're just always thinking, be better, do better, get bigger, numbers, all that kind of stuff. But making that decision every single day to come to the gym and to do what we're doing, like those are wins.
And I think too, like, if I'm doing the same thing in 10 more years from now and I'm at the same thing,
100%.
I'm like, well, that's progress, but it's maintenance, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
But especially as you're aging, I mean, if you can
Normally we
maintain
go
that,
the opposite way. So if we're maintaining,
yeah,
Then that's awesome. That's sweet. Yeah, I thought that was super, super cool. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say the other thing, when we were talking about that, is specifically in terms of if as we age, especially we're talking about women, if you start competing, what's kind of cool is as you age, if you're in a sport like we are, where to get into nationals you have to have a certain total, those totals change as you age. And so there's a benefit in a lot of ways, even if you're doing Boston Marathon, as you age, your
qualifications
qualifications
are
go down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, because it's as you age, you're like, okay, well, maybe I can, go to Worlds when I'm 50. Or, I couldn't when I was 40 or 30 maybe, but maybe at 50 I can. So how often do you have an incentive like that as you age?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think that's so cool. A little advantage to aging.
Yeah.
I really, really like that. And something that's really cool about that is I think that, because once again, it always comes down to time that discourages us, right? And I like to think to myself, like, let's say my goal is to get to Worlds. Whether I get there this year or by the time I'm 50, does it really make a difference the time or when I did it? More so that I got there at some point.
Yeah, the journey of getting there. That's where the wins happen. It's not necessarily on the platform of that day. Like, it's these little wins, consistent actions that get you to where you want to be. And that's just in everyday life.
Because it's actually too, it's those consistent actions that make you successful on the platform on competition day, because that's a whole other, when you compete at a, in a national or world level, it's very nerve-wracking. There's lights on you. It's very different. And so, people you can get really screwed up. So if you're practicing consistency in the gym all the time, it should be something you just naturally do when you're on a platform at a big meet. So that's also part of that, the benefits of.
Well, Chris says we train like we play, or no, is that what? Yeah, we train like we play. So every day, regardless if it's an empty bar, we train and we do exactly what we would do on the platform. Right? You're
every single rep that you do of everything should be the consistent. Just like, one big lift when you're doing a competition. Should your warm-ups,
an empty
everything.
Bar.
Yeah.
I like that too. I think that there's beauty in the simplicity of just doing the little things, and the little things add up. I think majority of folks create a lot more problems than are really there.
Mm-hmm. We overthink.
Totally. And I think training helps clear out a lot of the noise, especially if you're hanging out in the box, right? But I think it clears out a lot of noise, because there's just something, you're just so dialed into it. And I think that's kind of cool. It just filters things.
Yeah.
Which I really like. So we're at the top of the hour, and there's not much that went through all the things that I wanted to do. Is there anything in particular that, before I go into this final question for both of you, it's going to be cool. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on?
I think it was just more that you were touching on, like, we didn't always train together. So we were doing this on our own, like, especially when COVID, when the gyms were closed, we had our gyms in our houses or whatever. The benefit has been that we found with each other, we do it's a synergistic effect. Like it really works well for us when we're training for something, but that doesn't mean people can't do that on their own. But the point I think is if you can find someone to, like we were talking about before, those
journey.
5 people or whatever that you surround yourself with that are promoting you.
Yeah. People that are
filling
on
your cup,
the same journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really beneficial.
Yeah, it's so huge. What have you found it to be difficult, or actually in your journey through this powerlifting, or at least just like lifting weights and kind of going against some narratives of some folks? Have you felt that it's easier to kind of filter friends? So the supportive friends like you two, you support each other, you have synergy. What about like the ones that are not exactly on the same page? Do you have any experience with that?
That's a deep question.
Yeah, that's a deep one.
That could go.
I think we all have close friends that, I mean, yes, they support, but maybe not as much as we support each other.
Yeah.
We're really big on energy, Jody and I. And honestly, if people aren't, if they're not bringing good energy to us,
like filling your cup.
Yeah, they're not our friends anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds harsh, but like we need to start hanging out with people who rise us up and not people who take us down. And that's not even about the gym. That's just life. If you want to get here, you've got to be around people that are filling your cup. And we talk about this all the time. How do people make us feel? The energy that they bring.
Yeah. Do you feel good after you're with them? Or like, that's the key thing. Yeah. How do you feel after you're with someone? Do you feel good? Have they filled you? Or do you feel like you were sucked? Like it's your spirit was sucked out, or your soul sucked out. You know, did they say, oh, you're going to the gym tomorrow, are you?
Yeah.
Or you're, you know, like that kind of negativity. And you have to stop and go, how do I feel with that? Yeah. And so you get to a point where that's not healthy anymore. So you want to gravitate to the people that are bringing more to your life and making you feel good.
Yeah.
Joy.
And it's not that people have to be, you know, crazy about going to the gym and powerlifting and all of that kind of stuff. We're not saying that, but you just need to be around people who raise you up. That's all.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, without a doubt in my mind. And it also helps with, this is the benefit that I've noticed a lot with just spending more time around people that have similar interests, or at least like-minded goals. And it's actually been more so how humbling the process is. So rather than supporting a particular thought, like, oh, I suck at this, right? You have those objective eyes, or, oh shit, I'm like crushing it. I like the objective eyes, or the objective people that you're spending time with, to be able to come in there and be like, and just remind you and say, you gotta tone it down a little bit, like to humble yourself. So it's just like, hey, you're only human. Like, remember that. Do you think? Do you think that? How am I going to put that one? Do you think that that's a huge benefit, is having the objective set of eyes, being able to just kind of call you out? Do you think calling someone out is just as important as lifting someone up? There you go. That's what it is.
I think you have to have a super strong friendship to be able to do that in a certain way. And I mean, Jody and I, we call each other out all the time, right? Like, we call it a hall pass. So if someone's having a bad day and needs to complain, I will say, Jody, I need a hall pass right now. And she will say, no, you don't get a hall pass today. And so then all that negative stuff, we don't talk about. So yeah, for sure. But you've got to have, I mean, you have to have a strong friendship to be able to, I think, do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know if that gets through experience. I mean, there's a lot of times people probably don't have friendships like that. or relationships like that, where you can be completely honest. And it's just being, you got to say what you feel. And there's a different way of approaching that. It's not being accusatory or condescending or putting someone down. It's just being honest. And that's done with respect too. So I think
you got to respect each other. That's what it is, for sure.
Nice. That's pretty cool. So I got a question for you. It's kind of like a little end of the episode question for you, but I stole this from a favorite podcast of mine. Still working on my own, so I'll go steal one for now. But it's called the 3 truths. So we're gonna get 6 truths in this episode, but it's the 3 truths. So at the end of your long jacked lives, you're on your deathbed. Everything that you've ever written, posted, recorded vanishes. What are your 3 truths or your 3 pieces of advice that you would want the world to know?
I know one.
All right.
Huge word for me.
Let's start with you then.
Okay. Legacy. Legacy is one of my favorite words. What is the legacy you're going to leave? So I always think about big decisions in life, like how is that going to affect my legacy and how people will remember me? So legacy would be one. Mm-hmm. Now I've got to think of the other 2.
We can alternate.
I don't know if it's a word, but it would be like it kind of goes with legacy, but I would want to feel that in my life, well, I guess you're saying we can't be about the things we did, but a level of what you did, whatever your whole life was, you're content with that. Like, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like,
you lived a joyful life.
You lived a joyful life that you don't have, you're not sitting there going, I wish, or I did that to someone, or what. You just are very content. And not to talk about the karma of stuff, but just if you can live a life consistently that you feel good about, your actions, your behaviors, that to me that's a huge success. If you can just consistently live a balanced life like that.
Yeah. And I guess pulling off of Jody. So I guess number 2, if you're living, your best life, that will be a memory to others, to our children, right? Like, Mom, she always worked hard and I learned those lessons from my mother and now I'm going to do the same, right? Like I always say to myself and to other people in conversation, we've talked about this. If we expect our kids to be excellent, we need to be excellent. So yeah. 2. Okay. We've got 4 more.
Yeah,
you can come up with 1 more if you want. We can do 2 each as well.
We'll think of 1 more.
I think, and I'm kind of generally talking here, Denise teases me because I can justify.
She can justify any bad decision.
Me too.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that actually is just right.
Well, she knows to come to me. But with the where that goes back to is I'm a positive person, and it's the attitude. And I think if you can always have a positive attitude, I don't know where, this might not relate to the question you're asking, but I think
people will remember you for having that.
Living,
right?
Yeah, because if you live your life just with a positive attitude and you're not going into everything negative, it actually has such an effect on your body and your physiology. Like if you wake up in the morning and you say to yourself, oh, I feel this, and it's all negative, well, what's your day going to be like? It's going to be all negative, and then your life's going to be all negative. So positivity is such an underrated thing because it sets the tone for every single thing that you do. I don't know if this is really one of the things you're asking, but I just think it's an important thing in life in general.
Yeah. And living
lessons.
Your best life too, right?
Yeah.
That's totally fair. I think so I'll actually piggyback on that one. I was gonna probably call it quits on that one, but I got a little point that I think is really cool. I think if we're able to, and this is something I've been working on for myself and then and working with my clients to get as well, is that like how we're going to feel is going to be how we're going to feel. And there's always going to be fluctuations and up and down. So I think rather than chasing a certain feeling, we should become a particular being. And I think that when we can be joyful, although we feel upset, like let's say when a friend moves away.
Yeah.
So we can feel joy for them and we're excited for them, but we can also feel sorrow in that moment too. But I think
feelings.
Yeah. And I think one thing that ties into the kind of the energy as well is kind of similar to how our body can affect our brain, and our brain can do the same for our body. It's like when we're watching a scary show and we still have the same physiological responses as if it's happening to us, but it's not. Right. And I think when we actually, or at least for myself, is to be a joyful person, because I can control the joy by being it. And I think something that I had a realization of this weekend was is that when people are down, they're more likely to take to feel better rather than give to feel better. But when we're willing to give to feel better, then we make two people feel better.
Yeah. Always be helping.
Yeah.
Always be helping.
Totally. I think that's really cool. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool. Just the fact with us, like maybe it's even just you and I helping each other in the gym too, lends itself to even more effectiveness.
Yeah,
in that sense too.
Absolutely, because especially around the time that you two are there, it's very minimal amount of people. I can easily say like, "Hey, do you know these two?" And then they'd be anybody at the gym would be, "Oh yeah, I know that." Like people recognize the effort. I think it's cool. And that's just a byproduct of what you're doing. You're not intentionally trying to show the effort. You're actually just inspiring others.
Just doing the work.
Just by doing the work.
But on that note, Kyle, we were talking about, I mean, what you were just talking about in terms of being joyful, and you are the happiest trainer in the gym. Like, honestly, like you are. You've always looked like you have a good attitude. You're enjoying yourself and you're having fun and you're friendly. So you're living the walk too, right? Or living the talk.
I do my best. Yeah. I always make sure I check myself and make sure I'm dialed in on that one. Yeah. Cool. Well, is there anything that you want anyone that's listening to know? Any Instagram handles? Do you want people to reach you at any point?
Will be it evolved?
Yeah. Cool.
No.
Nice. Cool. Well,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. And then just stick around for a minute. And for the folks that are listening, I just want to say thank you very much for sticking around. I appreciate you a ton. I think you're an amazing human being. I hope your day treats you as good as you look. And other than that, whatever you're listening to this on, be sure to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, rating, all that good stuff. And until next time, I love you. Have yourself a great day.